and used all my strength to push the metal pole aside. Clang! The metal pole scraped past the little boy and fell onto the ground beside him, kicking up a cloud of dust. The boy was so scared he was stunned. He even forgot to cry, just sitting on the ground in a daze. Honey, the boy's mother, finally managed to run over and hugged her son tightly, crying out in fear. Everyone around crowded in, buzzing with discussion. Oh my god, that was so dangerous. Luckily we have this young man. Su Yan, are you okay? I braced my knees and slowly stood up straight. A bone-deep pain radiated from my left shoulder. I must have been hit hard. My arm was also burning. It might have been scraped. I moved my arm a little. Luckily, the bone seemed to be fine. I am fine. I waved my hand and looked at the little boy being held tightly by his mother, still sniffling. The little guy wasn't too scared, was he? No. No. Thank you, young man. The boy's mother thanked me repeatedly, tears streaming down her face. The crowd parted. Bai Ningbing strode quickly over. The usual composure on her face was gone, replaced by a rare, pale tension. She pushed aside the people blocking her way. Her eyes quickly swept over me and stopped on my left shoulder, which was bleeding, and which I was covering with my hand. You're injured. Her voice was a little tense. It wasn't a question, but a statement. It's just a small wound, just a scrape. I subconsciously wanted to lower my hand to prove it. Don't move, she snapped, taking a step forward. She wordlessly grabbed my wrist, with a force that surprised me a little. She glanced at the scrape on my arm, then looked at the shoulder I was covering. Her brows furrowed tightly. Zhao Yang, the medical kit. She turned her head and called to her assistant, with an unprecedented urgency in her tone. Sister Ningbing, this. Assistant Xiao Yang hesitated a bit, glancing at the increasing number of phones being raised all around. Go now. Bai Ningbing's voice carried an authority that allowed no doubt. Xiao Yang didn't dare delay any longer, and turned to run towards the RV. The scene fell silent. Everyone's eyes were focused on me and Bai Ningbing. Surprised, curious, scrutinizing. And there were also camera lenses. The director also ran over, his expression a mix of fear and concern. Mr. S.U., are you alright? Quick! Let's get him to the medical station to have a look. Xiao Li, go get the car. There's no need. I hurriedly refused. It's really nothing. Just a flesh wound. I can just put some medicine on it at home. Bai Ningbing paid no attention to me, nor to the director. She just held my wrist tightly, her eyes fixed on my shoulder, where the blood stain was becoming more obvious, her lips pressed into a pale, thin line. Xiao Yang returned, panting, carrying the medical kit. Bai Ningbing snatched it from her, her movements almost rough as she opened the kit and rummaged for iodine, cotton swabs, and gauze. Her hand, as she twisted the cap off the iodine bottle, was even trembling, almost imperceptibly. Sit down, she ordered, pointing to a flat rock nearby. Bai Ningbing, I told you to sit down. She suddenly looked up at me. The rims of her eyes had turned red at some point, swirling with complex emotions inside. Anger, fear, and something else. Su Yan, do you have to wait until you break a bone before you'll give in? Overwhelmed by her gaze and tone, I was momentarily speechless, and obediently sat down on the rock. She squatted down, but her movements became incredibly gentle in that instant. Using tweezers to pick up a cotton ball soaked in iodine, she carefully cleaned the bleeding wound on my arm. The cold sting mixed with a sharp pain. I couldn't help but hiss. Her movements paused for a moment, becoming even lighter. She lowered her head, her thick eyelashes drooping, casting a small shadow beneath her eyes. The sunlight shone on her delicate face. I could see tiny beads of sweat on the tip of her nose and her pale, tightly pressed lips. The noisy chatter of the people around us, the flashing camera lenses, seemed to all disappear, in a world where only her trembling fingertips and the wound remained, sending a small but clear sensation of stinging and coolness. She treated it very seriously, very carefully, first disinfecting with iodine, then applying ointment, and finally, gently wrapping it with clean gauze. While doing all this, she didn't say a word, just that her brows were always furrowed towards my shoulder. Su Yan, let me see. After treating my arm, she said softly, her voice a little hoarse. My shoulder is really fine. It's just a little bruised. It might be a bit bruised. I tried to refuse. After all, the location on my shoulder wasn't very convenient. She said nothing, just raised her eyes, and looked at me silently. In those beautiful, still reddened eyes, was written clear persistence, and also an imperceptible plea. I let out a sigh, and resignedly let go of the hand covering my shoulder, pulling my collar open a little. On my left shoulder, near the collarbone, there was indeed a large patch of bruising, swollen up, looking a bit scary. Bai Ningbing's breath hitched almost inaudibly. She picked up another bottle of medicinal oil for blood circulation, poured a little into her palm, rubbed it warm, then placed her warm palm gently on that bruise. MMPH. The sudden warmth and the pain from the pressure made me groan. Her palm flinched slightly. Her pressure became lighter. She began to slowly massage the wound with her fingertips. The pungent smell of the medicinal oil spread, mixing with the faint, familiar scent on her. Her fingertips were a little cold, but her palm was warm, little by little, rubbing away the bruise. Her movements were clumsy, even a little awkward, but I could feel the utmost effort, the care and concentration in it. We were very close. So close I could clearly see the fine hairs on her face, and could feel her gentle breath brushing against my skin. A few strands of her bangs fell down, swaying slightly with her movements. Time seemed to stretch out in this moment, thick and slow. I could feel countless eyes around us, could hear the suppressed whispers and camera clicks, but all of this was shut out. From the small, quiet space between us, she kept her head down, her long eyelashes trembling. The bead of sweat on her nose hadn't disappeared. She massaged for a long time, so long that I felt that patch of skin was about to be burned by her palm before she slowly stopped her movements. Then she maintained that posture, without looking up or pulling her hand back, just saying, in a very, very soft voice, "Su-Yan, you're still so stupid." Her voice was so low only the two of us could hear, carrying a heavy nasal tone and a hint of a suppressed, imperceptible sob. "You could have just ignored it." My heart suddenly clenched, as if something had gripped it tightly, both sour and painful. I wanted to say something, but my throat felt like it was blocked, unable to make any sound. She finally looked up. The rims of her eyes were a little redder than before, but her gaze had returned to clarity, even carrying a hint of her usual distant, protective color. She pulled her hand back, picked up the gauze, and with an unpracticed technique, wrapped it a few times around my shoulder, securing it. After doing all this, she quickly packed up the medical kit, stood up, took 2 steps back, widening the distance between us. "Don't let the wound get wet. You have to apply medicine twice a day," she instructed me matter-of-factly. Her gaze fell on my face, then quickly moved away again, looking towards the director. "Director, I'll leave the rest to you all to handle. I am going back to rest first." After saying that, she didn't look at me again, nor did she look at anyone else. She turned around, her back straight, and accompanied by her assistant, quickly left the threshing ground, her figure still slender and upright, her steps not at all flustered, as if the person who had just squatted in front of me, treating my wounds with red-rimmed eyes, the person with the choked voice, was my illusion. Only the lingering smell of medicinal oil in the air in her palms, scorching heat remaining on my shoulder skin, reminded me that everything that just happened was real. I sat on the rock, watching her receding figure. The wound on my shoulder throbbed with a dull ache, but in my heart, a wave of emotion surged, complex and indescribable. The director came over and patted my shoulder. "Su-Yan, we were really lucky to have you today. Another time, our crew will definitely thank you properly. You should go home and rest. If you need anything, just say the word." I came back to my senses and forced a smile. "It's nothing, Director. It was the right thing to do." The surrounding villagers also gathered around, praising me noisily. Concerned about my injury, I dealt with them, but my mind had already drifted far away. Binding Bing's last words and her red-rimmed eyes were like a slow-motion scene in a movie, replaying continuously in my head. "Su-Yan, you're still so stupid. You could have just ignored it." Was she blaming me for being reckless, or was her heart aching for me? The moment this thought appeared, it sprouted like a weed, but immediately after, I remembered her resolute, departing figure, and that cold bastard. The faint spark of hope that had just ignited, untimely, was immediately extinguished by the cold reality. She was probably just acting out of humanity, or perhaps a lingering reluctance to let go of the past. That's all it was. I slowly stood up. The pain in my left shoulder reminded me of everything that had just happened. The crowd gradually dispersed. The threshing ground returned to its deserted state. The sun was setting, dyeing the horizon a magnificent orange-red. I brushed the dust off my clothes and walked home, step by step. The film crew, the next morning, left with great fanfare. The village returned to its usual tranquility. It seemed as if the clamor of the past few days was just a bustling dream. Only a few traces of filming left in my courtyard, and the occasional gossip of the villagers after dinner proved that the dream had really happened. My life also seemed to have returned to its proper track, going to the fields to tend the vegetable garden, setting up the last few bamboo poles for the grape arbor. The bruise on my left shoulder was slowly fading. The scrape on my arm had scabbed over, itchy. The medicine Binding Bing left was very effective, but I stopped using it. That bottle of medicine with the foreign label was tucked away by me in the deepest part of the cabinet, placed with old things I no longer looked at. Second, Uncle would sometimes hint at things. "Ah, Yan, that day Miss Bai bandaged your wound for you." She seemed very worried. I just grunted in acknowledgement, lowered my head and ate, not engaging in the conversation. Second, Uncle sighed, and didn't ask any more questions. The storm on the internet also gradually subsided. Occasionally, marketing accounts would still use the story of a mysterious commoner heroically saving a beauty to write articles, but with no further developments. The hype also faded. My Facebook fell into silence. Private messages and tags gradually decreased, eventually falling into silence. This is also good. I thought this was the distance there should have been. She is a distant, untouchable star. I am a speck of dust on the ground. A chance intersection created an insignificant ripple, after which we each continued on our own orbits. Until one afternoon a week later, I was sitting under the old scholar tree in the courtyard, using the last bit of daylight to repair an old hoe. Ershu went to the upper town. The village is very quiet. Only the chirping of birds returning to their nests can be heard. The sound of the gate being gently pushed open. I thought Ershu was back. I didn't even lift my head. Ershu, the rice is in the pot. Heat it up yourself." There was no answer. I looked up. Bai Ningbing was standing at the gate. She wasn't wearing a hat or a mask. She didn't bring her assistant either. She was alone, wearing a simple white shirt and light-colored jeans. Her canvas shoes were a little dusty. The sunset light enveloped her, like a gentle golden halo. The evening breeze blew strands of hair against her cheeks. She looked simpler than when she was filming the show, but her eyes were bright, quietly looking at me. She was also carrying that familiar box in her hand, that rusty iron box. My fingers, holding the hoe handle, suddenly tightened. My heart uncontrollably skipped a beat. Time seemed to freeze in this moment. In the distance, cooking smoke drifted. Nearby, chickens and ducks were returning to their coops. The world was still operating at its usual pace. Only this little corner of ours, this yard, seemed to have been put on pause. Why is she here? Didn't the show end a long time ago? Shouldn't she have returned to her glamorous world? Filming, attending events, shining brightly. Countless questions swirled in my mind, but I couldn't ask a single one, just staring at her blankly, watching her walk step by step across the small yard, and come to stand before me. The sunset stretched, our shadows long, overlapping on the ground. She stopped in front of me, her gaze swept over the hoe in my hand, then settled on my face, very calm, not with the intensity from the day at the threshing ground, nor the coldness from outside the RV. It was a calm as deep as an abyss that I couldn't comprehend. Is your wound better? She asked. Her voice was very soft. It's better. I heard my own dry voice. It's almost healed. She nodded, and said nothing more. She just held the iron box in her hand out to me. I didn't take it. I looked at her. Take it, she said, in a tone that allowed no doubt. I hesitated for a moment, put down the hoe, wiped the sweat from my palms on my pants, and then took the box. It was very light. It seemed the thick stack of letters was no longer inside. Where are the letters? I asked. Didn't you say you were going to burn them? I burned them, she answered decisively. Her eyes were fixed on my face, as if observing my reaction. I've already scattered the ashes in the river. For a moment, I didn't know how to react. Should I breathe a sigh of relief, or should I feel a deeper sense of disappointment? But she immediately changed the subject, pulling something else out of the cloth bag she was carrying. It was a light blue hardcover notebook. Very ordinary. The corners were a bit worn. You could tell it had been frequently flipped through. I kept a copy of the contents. She handed the notebook over as well. Her tone was as casual as if she were discussing the weather. Getting rid of them was about letting go of the past's obsessions. But I think you have the right to know this. I stared at the notebook, without taking it. My heart pounded so hard in my chest that my eardrums were ringing. Bai Ning Bing. I licked my slightly dry lips. To you. You don't have to do this. I was the one who didn't receive those letters. It's my problem. You don't need to use this method. I am not asking for your opinion, Su Yan. She interrupted me, and took another small step forward. The distance between us was so close, I could smell the faint, clean scent of locust on her, mixed with a hint of delicate perfume. A faint scent from the distant city. She looked up, straight into my eyes. The sunset light fell into the depths of her eyes, as if lighting two small, stubborn flames. I just came to tell you, and also to tell myself, she said, word by word, clearly. 3 years. I used 3 years to digest your silent departure. I thought I had let go. I thought I had succeeded. I won awards, stood on a higher stage, was seen by more people, and loved. I told myself, look, Bai Ning Bing, without him, you live better, more brilliantly. She didn't speak quickly. It was even a little slow. Every word carried weight. But when I pushed open this gate and saw you squatting there, pulling up radishes as if nothing had happened, she paused for a moment. The corners of her lips lifted in a faint smile, full of self-mockery. I knew then. I was wrong. Completely wrong. I held my breath, watching her. That resentment, indignation, unwillingness, that doubt, they never disappeared. They were just hidden by me, hidden in a corner that even I couldn't find. And then you, and this yard, easily dug it all up. She took a breath, as if gathering courage. Su Yan, I used to hate you. Hated your self-righteousness. Hated your silent departure. Hated you for making me feel like a fool. Doubting myself. Tormenting myself. I even once thought, if I ever saw you again, I would definitely curse you out, or just pretend not to know you at all, so you could also taste what it's like to be ignored. But her tone shifted, her voice lowered, carrying a barely perceptible tremor. When I saw that pillar falling towards you, my mind went blank. I had only one thought. Nothing can happen to you. Her eyes were slightly red-rimmed, but her gaze was surprisingly bright, stubbornly, looking at me, not allowing me to look away. In that moment, I understood. Su Yan, hate is because I care. Anger is because I haven't let go. I am angry with you. I scratch you. But I am even more afraid of something really happening to you. She bit her lower lip, as if it took all her strength to say the next words. It's been 3 years. I've tried. I tried to fill all my time with work. Tried to meet new people. Tried to tell myself that you were just a passerby. Unimportant in my life. But it didn't work. She shook her head. A tear finally rolled down across her pale cheek. It didn't work. Su Yan, I can't do it. Seeing you get hurt, I panic. Seeing you avoid me, I feel upset. Seeing this yard, seeing that persimmon tree, seeing that well, seeing everything related to you. I still remember the old days. Remember you saying you wanted to plant a field of watermelons we couldn't finish. Remember the chilled mung bean soup by the well in summer. Remember you climbing the tree to pick persimmons for me and falling. Your knees scraped, but you still smiled foolishly at me. Her tears flowed more freely. Her voice choked with sobs, but she stubbornly continued. Time didn't make me forget you. Su Yan, it only turned everything about you into a stronger, more bitter wine. I thought I had quit. but just one small taste, and I completely collapse. I stood on the spot, as if petrified by a spell. Then, she wiped the tears from her face forcefully, lifted her chin, and looked at me with an all-or-nothing gaze. I am not going to run anymore, Su-Yan, and I won't let you run anymore either. Those letters were what the past me wanted. To say to the past you, it doesn't matter if you read them or not. I've scattered the ashes. Consider it an explanation for those 3 years.